Lithography. So, lithography is a type of printmaking process that's far too long for me to really just get into right now. But the basic idea of lithography is that you typically use limestone blocks. Apparently, I've never done this, but you can also use apparently aluminum. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but I've done the limestone printmaking processes before. The basic idea of this process is that it utilizes the fact that oily, waxy kinds of materials don't mix with water. And it gets a lot more complicated on how to get this to work correctly, but the basic idea is that you take a greasy, waxy type of drawing pencil, if you will, kind of a crayon, and you'll draw on this very perfectly flattened and smooth and kind of more or less polished up flat surface of stone. You'll carefully not touch it because you don't want any of your skin oils or anything getting onto the stone, otherwise it'll mess everything up. So you very carefully don't let any of that happen, and you draw a reverse image, a mirror image of what you want, and it'll look like a kind of a crayon drawing because that's kind of what you're doing. Then you prep it with acid to seed it and all this other processes and clean it up and blah, 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 blah. After this whole process, you'll dampen the entire stone and then very carefully wipe the standing water off of it so that it doesn't mess up your print, and then roll oil-based ink across the entire surface. That oil won't stick to the dampened stone that has water in it still, but it will stick to the surfaces that didn't soak that water up. So it'll, amazing, it's kind of like magic. It'll just kind of start growing your image back onto the surface because it disappears in the process of prepping it. So you'll get a good coat of this ink on there, get it all prepped the way you want. Then dampen yourself a piece of paper sometimes. Sometimes the processes don't want to dampen. Well, yeah, depends on what you're doing. Typically not the way that I did it. And then put it through a press that's more of a squeegee in this case instead of a roller like Intaglio does. And it'll run that stuff underneath this squeegee as it presses really hard down onto the surface. And if you've done it all correctly and you don't have a dip in the middle of your carefully prepped stone or some other problems, then it'll let you pull off a mirror image of what you've drawn. The cool thing about lithography, though, is that it can create duplicates. You can make 100 of these prints if you want, or more, depending on how good you are, that will look like each and every single one of them you drew by hand, because you'll be drawing onto the block to begin with in a manner that is very gesturally handmade, and it'll look like the, if you will, brush strokes, if you will, of sketch art and drawing directly onto the final project, which can be an aesthetic that you really value quite a lot. And it's really great. Not the easiest thing in the world to make multiple colors with, though, because then you have to make another block and then figure out how to line those up. This one's not easy. Other things are easier to get registration to work with, but lithography is really cool stuff. Trust me.